Shoscombe Old Place. The scariest Sherlock Holmes story ever written? It's no Hound of the Baskervilles, but there is a dog in it. In fact, this story by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was originally going to be called The Black Spaniel. You know what's really scary about Shoscombe Old Place? It's the very last Sherlock Holmes story that Sir Arthur Conan Doyle ever wrote. And this is set around the turn of the century, but it was written back in 1927, a while ago now, and Conan Doyle would be dead only 3 years later. The adventure of Shoscombe Old Place begins at Baker Street, yet the TV show version with Jeremy Brett begins at the horse stable with a young Jude Law, a jockey who wants employment. Jude Law would of course grow up to become Dr. Watson to Robert Downey Jr.'s Holmes. The basic plot, Mr. Mason comes to Holmes for help. Sir Robert Noberton is acting peculiar, and his sister even more peculiar. She owns the stable and Shoscombe Old Place. The brother owns nothing, but he's allowed to live there and use the stables as long as she is alive. Once she's dead, the property would revert to her late husband's brother.
It reverts to her husband's brother after her death.
So Robert is in a lot of debt. As it's told in the book, his whole life is on it. He's holding off the Jews till then. Little anti-Semitic. Mr. Mason has also found a human bone in the cellar furnace. And so Robert goes to the cemetery, the crypt, every night for mysterious meetings. See? This could be a Halloween scary story. So Holmes agrees to solve the unusual case. In fact, they're not quite sure what crime has been committed at this point. Well, I guess there's a dead body. Thus it was that on a bright May evening, Holmes and I found ourselves alone in a first-class carriage and bound for the little halt-on-demand station of Shoscombe. The rack above us was covered with a formidable litter of rods, reels, and baskets. On reaching our destination, a short drive took us to an old-fashioned tavern where a sporting host, Josiah Barnes, entered eagerly into our plans for the extirpation of the fish of the neighborhood. So that's cool. It's like a fishing village and they've stopped at an old tavern. The Jeremy Brett episode does a great job of like production design. You really feel like you're back in time. Is Jeremy Brett your favorite Sherlock Holmes? Basil Rathbone is mine. Watson, the game is afoot. So I mentioned that this story was originally titled The Black Spaniel. Well, there was a dog, Lady Beatrice's dog. She's the sister of Sir Robert, who owns everything. She used to stop at the stables every morning, say hello to her favourite horse, Shoscombe Prince, who Sir Robert hopes to win the Derby, and pay off all of his debts to the Jews. She had a dog, a spaniel, but then Sir Robert gave it away to the innkeeper for some reason. Now let's talk about Holmes and Watson visiting the haunted crypt. Let's get all Halloweeny now. It was pitch dark and without a moon, but Mason led us over the grasslands until a dark mass loomed up in front of us which proved to be the ancient chapel. We entered the broken gap, which was once the porch, and our guide stumbled among the heaps of loose masonry, picked his way to the corner of the building where a steep stair led down into the crypt. Striking a match, he illuminated the melancholy place, dismal and evil-smelling, with ancient crumbling walls of rough-hewn stone and piles of coffins, some of lead and some of stone, extending upon one side right up to the arched and groined roof, which lost itself in the shadows above our heads. Holmes had lit his lantern, which shot a tiny tunnel of vivid yellow light upon the mournful scene. Its rays were reflected back from the coffin plates, many of them adorned with the griffin and coronet of this old family, which carried its honors even to the gate of death. Skipping ahead, here comes the real Halloweeny bit. I saw a body swatched in a sheet from head to foot, with dreadful, witch-like features, all nose and chin projecting at one end, the dim glazed eyes staring from a discolored and crumbling face. Chilling. Who is the person they found in the crypt? In the TV show, Lady Beatrice never talks to anyone anymore. Her dog has been given away. She doesn't even visit her famous horse, Shoscombe Prince. She just leaves every day and goes into town for errands in a carriage with her maid. She stops in the book at a gate with gargoyle fences. But in the TV show, there is no gate. Watson just steps up in front of the carriage and says, "Hold it right there, I need to ask a question." And then Holmes lets the dog go, which is called Jasper in the TV show and is unnamed in the book. In the book, however, the carriage had slowed to a walk, and I was able to get a look at the occupants. A highly coloured young woman with flaxen hair and impudent eyes sat on the left. At her right was an elderly person with rounded back and a huddle of shawls about her face and shoulders, which proclaimed the invalid. When the horses reached the high road, I held up my hand with an authoritative gesture, and as the coachman pulled up, I inquired if Sir Robert was at Shoscombe Old Place. At the same moment, Holmes stepped out and released the spaniel. With a joyous cry, it dashed towards the carriage and sprung upon the step. Then, in a moment, its eager greeting changed to furious rage, and it snapped at the black skirt above it. "Drive on!" shrieked a harsh voice. The coachman lashed the horses, and we were left standing in the roadway. "Well, Watson, that's done it," said Holmes, as he fastened the lead to the neck of the excited spaniel. He thought it was his mistress, and he found it was a stranger. Dogs don't make mistakes. The curious incident of the dog at night. Nighttime. The dog did nothing at nighttime. That is the curious incident. Well, this dog did something. It didn't recognize its old master. Someone else is obviously dressed up as Lady Beatrice. And the person they found down in the crypt, witch-like, is Lady Beatrice's body. So who is pretending to be Lady Beatrice? It is, of course, Jude Law, dressed up. The In this one, he is the jockey slash apprentice. In the book, he is the husband of the maid. And it's to keep the falsehood that Lady Beatrice is alive and well, so Sir Robert can continue to keep the stables and hope that Shoscombe Prince, the horse, will win the horse race. Then he'll be able to pay off his debts. So is there a crime? What did Lady Beatrice die of? She dropped dead of dropsy. Natural causes. And here's Sir Robert explaining what happened. Well, Mr. Holmes, my sister did die just a week ago. And you told no one? What could I do? Absolute ruin faced me. If I could stave things off for 3 weeks, all would be well. Her maid's husband, this man here, is an actor. It came into my head, that he could, for a short period, personate my sister. It was but a case of appearing daily in the carriage, for no one need enter her room save the maid. It was not difficult to arrange. My sister died of the dropsy, which had long afflicted her. Case closed, eh? I am dependent upon my sister, Lady Beatrice, for everything, but it is well known that her interest in the estate is for her own life only. For myself, I am deeply in the hands of the Jews. I have always known that if my sister were to die, my creditors would be on my estate like a flock of vultures. Back at Baker Street, Watson reads the newspaper that Shoscombe Prince had won the race and Sir Robert is no longer in debt. So a happy ending for all. Who was the bone in the cellar furnace then? Dun dun dun. It was just the bones from the crypt that Sir Robert and the maid and Jude Law moved out so they could put his sister in there instead, and he tried to burn it all. But bones are hard to burn, and isn't that the scariest thing of all? So, a much scarier story than you would have thought. 1927's Shoscombe Old Place.